I'm Clara, 31 years old, and for years I've been the responsible one. The daughter who paid my parents' bills, covered my sister's rehab, and held this family together with sheer grit. But this Thanksgiving, they showed me exactly what that loyalty was worth. I showed up with my 6-year-old son, arms full of food and gifts, only to be told we weren't welcome. Humiliated, blindsided. And then hours later, I opened my bank app. $5,000, gone. Taken by the same people who pushed us away. That was the day I finally stopped being their ATM and started protecting myself. Before I tell you how it all unfolded, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to choose peace over family, hit that like and subscribe. This story might be the reminder you need. From the outside, I guess my family looked like your classic American postcard. My father, Arthur, quiet but firm, the kind of man who didn't say much, but when he did, you listened. My mother, Eleanor, graceful on the surface, though anyone paying close attention could tell there were layers of complexity beneath that warm smile. Then there was Chloe, my little sister, 4 years younger, and me. We lived in a cozy wooden house tucked away in the rolling green hills of Vermont, where Sunday dinners always meant laughter echoing through the kitchen, and summer vacations were spent camping by the peaceful shores of Lake Champlain. For the longest time, I truly believed we were a close-knit family. I still remember the day Chloe was born as if it happened yesterday. I was 4 years old, bouncing with excitement at the thought of finally having a little sister. My parents took me to the hospital, and I clutched a tiny stuffed bunny I had saved my allowance to buy, determined to be the best big sister I could possibly be. Even at that age, I wanted to protect her, love her, be her safe place. I still keep those old photos, me holding that tiny bundle in my arms, my eyes filled with nothing but wonder and love. But as the years passed, the cracks started to show. I began to notice things weren't quite as even as they seemed. Whenever Chloe cried, everyone rushed to comfort her like the world might end. But when I cried, I was told to be a big girl, to toughen up. When Chloe struggled in school, tutors were hired, teachers were called, plans were made. When I brought home straight A's, it was just expected. Our Clara, my mom would say with pride to her friends, she's the responsible one. At first, I wore that label like a badge of honor. I studied hard, signed up for every after-school club, helped around the house without being asked. Meanwhile, Chloe discovered her own unique talent, getting her way. She'd break something and blame me. She'd cry until she got what she wanted. She could stir up drama out of thin air, and somehow, Mom and Dad always made excuses for her. She's just sensitive, they'd say, when I dared to question the fairness of it all. She needs more attention. By the time I hit high school, that pattern was carved in stone. I was the debate team captain, editor of the school paper, already on track for a college scholarship. Chloe, 2 years behind me, was, well, popular but always in trouble, skipping class, sneaking drinks, breaking curfew. Every time Mom and Dad would brush it off. She's just finding herself, they'd say, like that explained everything. After graduation, I made it to Green Mountain University on a partial scholarship, majoring in business and finance. I worked part-time jobs to cover what the scholarship didn't. Chloe? She barely scraped through high school. But somehow, the moment she enrolled in community college, Mom and Dad paid every cent of her tuition without hesitation. It was during my junior year of college that I met David. He was charming, ambitious, and at least back then, he made me feel like I truly mattered. We dated for nearly 2 years before getting married right after graduation. I was only 22, probably too young to know better. But I was head over heels in love, convinced we could build a beautiful life together. I landed a job at Willow Creek Investments, one of the more reputable financial consulting firms in town. David worked in marketing. We bought a small house, started dreaming about the future, and when I found out I was pregnant with Leo a year later, we were over the moon. Everything seemed perfect until it wasn't. At 7 months pregnant, I discovered David had been cheating on me, with a colleague no less. That betrayal broke me in ways I can hardly describe. We tried to patch things up, but some cracks run too deep. By the time Leo was 3 months old, we were divorced. Suddenly, I was a single mom with a demanding career and a newborn in my arms. Those first few years, They were the hardest of my life. I'd work long hours, rush to pick Leo up from daycare, spend my evenings feeding him, rocking him to sleep, and then bury myself in work emails late into the night. Weekends weren't for rest. They were a blur of laundry, meal prep, and doing my best to give Leo the kind of childhood I always dreamed of. My parents helped now and then, but the truth is, they were often too wrapped up in their own worries, mostly about Chloe. By then, she had dropped out of community college, drifting from one dead-end job to the next, tangled up in a series of messy, short-lived relationships. It wasn't easy, but I kept pushing forward. By the time Leo turned 3, I had earned 2 promotions and for the first time felt a sense of financial security. I bought a nicer home in a neighborhood with good schools. I was finally building the stable future my son deserved. Then, 5 years ago, everything shifted again. My dad suffered a heart attack. Thankfully, it wasn't life-threatening, but it was a wake-up call. While he recovered, I discovered the truth. They were drowning in debt. Years of bailing Chloe out, poor financial planning, and Dad's declining health had left them on the brink of losing their home. I didn't hesitate. I stepped in, paid off the most urgent debts, took over their mortgage, covered their utility bills. I set up automatic payments for their expenses and added them to my health insurance as dependents. When their car broke down, I helped finance a new one. When they needed a new roof, I paid for it. In total, I've poured over $120,000 into keeping them afloat these past 5 years. Meanwhile, Chloe's life stayed stuck in its familiar downward spiral. She'd move in with a new boyfriend, land a job, seem stable for a few months. Then the relationship would implode, and she'd come crawling back to our parents' house, broke and defeated. It wasn't long before addiction crept in. First alcohol, then prescription pills. Rehab stints followed, paid for, of course, by Mom and Dad, which really meant by me. Through it all, I kept visiting my parents, mostly for Leo's sake. I wanted him to have grandparents, to know that kind of unconditional bond. Every other week, we'd show up for dinner. I'd endure Mom's passive-aggressive remarks about my parenting, Dad's grumbling about politics, and the latest dramatic saga from Chloe, if she even bothered to show up. "You're so lucky, Clara," Mom would say, her voice tinged with something between envy and accusation. "Everything always comes so easy for you." And I'd bite my tongue, thinking of the 60-hour work weeks, the nights I cried from sheer exhaustion, the endless hustle to build a life for Leo, alone. Nothing about this has ever been easy. I've clawed my way to stability with grit and sacrifice. But family is family, I'd remind myself. So I kept showing up, kept paying the bills, kept hoping, naively, maybe, that one day we'd evolve into the loving, supportive family I'd always longed for. That hope carried me all the way to this Thanksgiving. This year, I was genuinely excited about Thanksgiving. Leo's 6 now, old enough to truly enjoy the traditions, to create memories that last. For the first time, I decided to host dinner at my house. It felt like a new beginning. I wanted to start traditions of our own, to make our home the heart of family gatherings. 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, I called my parents to invite them over. "Actually, sweetheart," my mother said, her voice light and cheerful, "we were thinking of hosting this year. Your father's been feeling so much better, and we thought it'd be nice to have everyone over again, like the old days." I felt a pang of disappointment, but I didn't argue. "Sure, Mom, that sounds lovely. Do you want me to bring anything?" "Just you and Leo," she replied brightly. "And maybe your famous cranberry sauce. Everyone loves that." A week before Thanksgiving, I threw myself into preparations. I took Leo shopping for a new outfit. A cute little button-up shirt and khakis for him. A deep burgundy sweater dress for me. We picked out thoughtful gifts for everyone. A nice bottle of whiskey for Dad. A soft cashmere scarf for Mom. Even a gift card to Chloe's favorite clothing store, though I wasn't entirely sure she'd show up. I made my cranberry sauce from scratch, just like Grandma taught me, with fresh orange zest and a hint of cinnamon. Leo helped, standing on a little stool at the kitchen counter, carefully measuring ingredients in his tiny apron. "Is Aunt Chloe coming, Mommy?" he asked as we stirred the bubbling pot. That question made me pause. Chloe had missed the last few family gatherings, always with some last-minute excuse. "I don't know, sweetheart," I answered honestly. "But Grandma and Grandpa will be there for sure." 3 days before Thanksgiving, I got an odd phone call from my mother. "Clara, darling," she began. her voice carrying that overly casual tone I'd come to recognize as a warning sign. I was just wondering, do you really need to come on Thursday? I nearly dropped the phone. What, Mom, it's Thanksgiving. Yes, yes, of course, she rushed to say. I just thought, well, you're always so busy with work. And driving can be tiring. Mom, it's a 40-minute drive, and I've already taken Thursday and Friday off, I said, confusion tightening in my chest. Is something going on? No, everything's fine, she insisted quickly. Just checking. See you Thursday, around 2 o'clock? I hung up, staring at my phone, bewildered. What was that about? For a second, I wondered if they were planning some sort of surprise for me, but knowing our family history, that seemed unlikely. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I called my father to double-check our arrival time. Dad, we're still coming at 2 on Thursday, right? There was a pause before he answered. Yeah, we are. Then he hesitated. Listen, Clara, there's something you should probably know. Chloe's going through a rough patch. My heart sank. Here we go again. What happened this time? I asked, keeping the exhaustion out of my voice as best I could. She and that boyfriend of hers, Craig, broke up. It got messy. She's staying with us for now. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I meant it. Whatever else, Chloe was still my sister. Is there anything I can do? No, he replied quickly. Just try to understand if she's a little fragile on Thursday. Your mother's worried about tension. Dad, I always try to get along with Chloe, I said, a defensive edge creeping into my tone. I'm not the one stirring up drama. I know, sweetheart, he sighed. It's a tough time. The day before Thanksgiving, I got a text from my mom. Clara, can you come at 3 instead of 2? We need a little extra time to get ready. My suspicion only grew, but I kept my reply simple. Sure, Mom, no problem. That afternoon, I showed the text to my best friend Brooke over coffee. Weird, she frowned. Especially after she basically suggested you not come at all. Maybe it's more money trouble, I offered. I noticed Dad still hasn't cashed the check I sent to cover their property taxes. Brooke studied me for a long moment. Clara, you're too good to them, especially with the way they bend over backwards for your sister. I shrugged uncomfortably. Brooke had seen enough of my family over the years to have strong opinions. They're my family, I said, the familiar refrain rolling off my tongue. Family's supposed to be a two-way street, Brooke shot back. Just be careful, okay? Don't let them take advantage of your kindness. Thanksgiving morning dawned bright and crisp, sunlight pouring through the windows. Leo woke me early, bouncing on my bed with excitement. Mommy, it's Turkey Day, I laughed, pulling him into a hug. That's right, sweetheart. Happy Thanksgiving. We spent the morning in our pajamas, watching the Macy's parade on TV. I had baked 2 pumpkin pies the night before, and the whole house smelled like cinnamon and nutmeg. Around noon, we started getting ready. Do you think Grandma made those special dinner rolls? Leo asked as I buttoned up his shirt. I smiled, remembering how he had devoured 3 of them last Christmas. Oh, I bet she did, I chuckled. His questions kept coming. And is Uncle Ben and Aunt Diane coming too? He asked, mentioning my father's brother and his wife, who sometimes showed up for holidays. Maybe, I said with a shrug. We'll find out when we get there. As I did my makeup, I tried to brush aside the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. It's just a family dinner, I told myself in the mirror. Whatever's going on with Chloe, we can manage it for one afternoon. Leo proudly carried the cranberry sauce out to the car while I followed with the pies. His little face beamed with excitement. And in that moment, I promised myself I'd make this a good day, no matter what family drama bubbled beneath the surface. Ready for Thanksgiving, buddy? I asked as I buckled him into his booster seat. Ready, he shouted, giving me a big thumbs up. I had no idea what was waiting for us at my parents' house, but for Leo's sake, I intended to face it with grace. We pulled into my parents' driveway, right at 3 o'clock, and I noticed a few unfamiliar cars parked along the street. That's odd, I thought. Mom hadn't mentioned inviting extended family or friends. Look, Leo, I pointed to a blue sedan. I think that's Uncle Ben and Aunt Diane's car. They actually made it. Leo's whole face lit up. He adored my uncle, who always brought little toys and somehow had endless patience for a 6-year-old's energy. We gathered our things, the cranberry sauce, the pies, the carefully wrapped gifts, and made our way to the front door. I barely raised my hand to knock before the door swung open. There stood my father, wearing the sweater I bought him last Christmas, looking uneasy beneath his forced smile. "Clara, Leo," he greeted us stiffly. Come on in, come on in." The house smelled heavenly. Roast turkey, sage stuffing, and those famous dinner rolls Mom always made. But something felt off. The usual warmth was replaced by a thick, awkward tension that was impossible to ignore. "Where should I put these, Grandpa?" Leo asked, clutching the jar of cranberry sauce with both hands. "In the kitchen, sweetheart," Dad replied, ruffling his hair. "Grandma's in there." As Leo toddled off toward the kitchen, I turned to my dad. "Dad, is everything all right? You seem tense." Before he could answer, Mom appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands on her apron. She pulled me in for a quick, anxious hug. "Clara, you're right on time. Dinner's almost ready." Her eyes darted around the room, carefully avoiding mine. From the living room, I could hear chatter and laughter, more voices than I expected. "Who else is here, Mom?" I asked. "Oh, just family," she answered vaguely. "Ben and Diane, Aunt Lisa and her husband, your Aunt Margaret, Aunt." As she spoke, I caught sight of Leo returning from the kitchen, his little face scrunched in confusion. Before I could ask what was wrong, a voice, sharp and familiar, rang out from the hallway. "What the hell is she doing here?" Chloe stood at the entrance to the living room, arms crossed, glaring at me with pure, unfiltered hostility. Her hair was different, dyed black with purple streaks at the ends, and she'd clearly lost weight since I last saw her. But that look of contempt? I knew it all too well. Mom's hand trembled at her throat. "Chloe, please," she whispered. "It's Thanksgiving." "You told me she wasn't coming," Chloe shot back, pointing at me like I was some kind of intruder. "You promised." It felt like a slap across the face. "What?" I turned to my parents, my voice tight with disbelief. "What is she talking about?" Dad stepped forward, palms raised in a familiar attempt to calm the storm. "Let's not do this in the hallway, girls. Dinner's almost ready. Everyone's waiting." "I'm not sitting at the same table as her," Chloe announced dramatically. "You know what she did, Mom." Completely bewildered, I shook my head. "Chloe, I have no idea what you're even talking about. I haven't seen you in months." "Oh, don't play innocent," she sneered. "That's what you always do. Play the perfect one, while making my life a living hell." By now, Leo had inched closer to my side, his tiny hand gripping mine, trembling ever so slightly. I could feel the tension radiating off him. "Mom," I said carefully, forcing my voice to stay calm. "What is going on? Why is Chloe acting like this?" My mother stared at the floor, then at my father, and finally, reluctantly, at me. "Clara, maybe today's just not the best day after all." I stood there, frozen, her words sinking in like ice water down my spine. "Mom, are you asking us to leave?" From the living room, I could hear murmured voices and the scraping of chairs. Uncle Ben appeared behind Chloe, his face etched with concern. "Everything okay out here?" he asked, glancing between us. "No," Chloe snapped, her eyes flashing. "They invited her after telling me she wouldn't be here." Uncle Ben looked genuinely confused. "But Clara, you always come to family gatherings." "Not anymore," Chloe declared dramatically. "Not after what she did." My confusion was quickly giving way to frustration. "And exactly what did I do?" I asked, my voice sharper now, tinged with hurt. Chloe's eyes narrowed into slits. "Like you don't know. You're always trying to make me look bad, telling everyone how irresponsible I am, what a burden I've been, spreading lies about me behind my back." I felt like I'd been slapped. I had never spoken badly about Chloe to anyone, except maybe the occasional venting to Brooke. And certainly never to our relatives. "Chloe, that's not true," I said firmly. "I haven't said a word about you to anyone." "Liar!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the hallway like glass. Leo shrank behind me, burying his face in my coat. "Everyone's been treating me differently, looking at me like I'm some failure. And it all started after you had lunch with Aunt Margaret last month." I remembered that lunch. It had been a perfectly ordinary afternoon, mostly chatting about Leo's school, my work. Chloe barely even came up. Right on cue, Aunt Margaret appeared behind Uncle Ben, looking stricken. "Chloe, sweetheart. Clara didn't say anything bad about you. We were just worried, that's all." "See?" Chloe snapped, glaring at her. She's already turned everyone against me. My mother stepped between us, her voice tight with desperation. Please, not today. Don't do this today. And then, to my shock, she turned to me and spoke quietly, almost pleading. Clara, maybe it would be better if you and Leo came by another time. Chloe needs us right now. The betrayal hit me like a gut punch. Mom, you can't be serious. You're asking us to leave on Thanksgiving? My father cleared his throat, stepping in awkwardly. Just this once, Clara. Chloe's going through a really tough time, and the doctor said stress could trigger another episode. Another episode? I repeated, my voice flat. What are you even talking about? She doesn't need to know, Chloe snapped, cutting in. Just get her out of here. Mom, Leo whispered, tugging at my hand, his little voice cracking. Why is Aunt Chloe so mad? Why is everyone fighting? His innocent question shattered my heart into pieces. This day was supposed to be special for him. I don't understand, I said, looking between my parents. You invited us. We brought food. Leo has been counting down to this day for weeks. I know, sweetheart, my mother replied, her eyes darting away from mine. But family has to come first. The bitter irony in her words wasn't lost on me. We are family, Mom. Leo and I, we are family. My father placed a hand on her shoulder. Of course you are, honey. But Chloe needs special care right now. You understand. You've always been the strong one. From the living room, I heard Aunt Lisa calling. Is dinner ready yet? The kids are starving. Just a few more minutes, my mother called back, her voice brittle. Turning to me, she added quieter. We can pack up some food for you to take home. I stood there, clutching Leo's hand, humiliated and betrayed. Were they really doing this? Sending us away to appease Chloe's latest meltdown? You're choosing her over us, I said flatly. Again. It's not like that, my father protested weakly. It's just, for today. You're not welcome at our family dinner, Chloe declared, her voice ringing with triumph. So take your brat and leave. The word brat hit me like a slap. I could take insults aimed at me, but not my son. Leo is your nephew, I said, my voice low and dangerously calm. He hasn't done a thing to deserve that. Chloe rolled her eyes. Whatever, just leave already. I looked at my parents, waiting, hoping they would defend us, that they would finally put Chloe in her place. Instead, my mother sighed and said, I'll pack you some turkey and potatoes to take home. And then, as if twisting the knife just a little deeper, she added, and please, take your pies with you. We have more than enough dessert. In that moment, I saw my family for exactly what they were, maybe for the very first time. I had made excuses for them for years, telling myself that blood is thicker than water, that family sticks together no matter what. But this wasn't family, not in any way that actually mattered. Don't bother, I said coldly. Keep the food, keep the gifts, keep all of it. I turned to Leo, his little eyes glossy with tears. Come on, sweetheart. We'll have our own Thanksgiving. His lower lip wobbled. But Mommy, what about Grandma's dinner rolls? My mother winced at that, but stayed silent. We'll make our own rolls, I promised him softly. Even better ones. As we turned to leave, Chloe stood there smirking like she'd won some twisted prize. My parents looked uncomfortable, but they didn't stop us. Only Uncle Ben stepped forward. Clara, wait, he started. But I cut him off with a shake of my head. Enjoy dinner, I said, my voice steady even as my throat tightened. Don't worry about us. We'll be just fine. And with that, I led Leo out the door, leaving behind the cranberry sauce, the pies, the carefully chosen gifts, and whatever tiny, fragile illusions I still clung to about this family. The first few minutes in the car were nothing but silence, except for Leo's quiet sniffles in the back seat. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white, my eyes fixed on the road ahead, blinking back the tears that threatened to spill. Finally, Leo's small voice broke the silence. Mommy, why were Grandma and Grandpa so mean to us? I glanced at his confused little face in the rearview mirror. How do you explain toxic family dynamics to a 6-year-old? They weren't very kind today, I said gently. Sometimes. Grown-ups make bad choices. His frown deepened. But it's Thanksgiving, he protested, his voice cracking. We're supposed to be together on Thanksgiving. You always say that. I know, sweetheart, I whispered, My voice breaking. It's supposed to be that way. His eyes filled with fresh tears. Did I do something wrong? Is that why they wanted us to leave? His question cut through me like glass. No, Leo, you didn't do anything wrong, I said firmly. This isn't about you. Then why? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I couldn't drive anymore. I pulled into the little park we visited sometimes, parking under a tree near the empty playground. I turned around to face him. Sometimes, family relationships are complicated. Aunt Chloe is hurting about something, and Grandma and Grandpa are trying to make her feel better, but they made a mistake today, asking us to leave. Leo thought for a moment. Aunt Chloe was really mad, he finally said. She called me a brat. His lower lip trembled again. I unbuckled my seatbelt and reached back, taking his hand in mine. And that was completely wrong of her. You're not a brat. You're a wonderful, kind, smart little boy. And anyone would be lucky to spend Thanksgiving with you. He nodded, though he still looked unsure. Can we still eat turkey? Despite everything, I found myself smiling. Absolutely, I said. We're going to have our very own, extra special Thanksgiving. As Leo gazed out the window toward the empty playground, I pulled out my phone. 5 missed calls. 3 from my mother, 1 from my father, 1 from Uncle Ben. More text messages waiting. Clara, please understand. Chloe needs us right now. Call me when you're home safe. We'll make it up to you. Clara, what happened tonight was wrong. Call me later. I slipped the phone back into my bag without replying. Instead, I opened my banking app and scrolled through the endless list of transactions. Automatic payments for my parents' mortgage, utility bills, insurance premiums. 5 years of financial support, more than $2,000 a month. I thought about every birthday, every holiday I had gone out of my way to make special for them. Even when my own budget was hanging by a thread. The Christmas I scraped together enough to take them to New York so they could see the Nutcracker on Broadway. The dinner reservation I surprised them with for Dad's 60th birthday. Countless times I had put their needs ahead of my own, and for what? To be pushed aside. The second Chloe had one of her meltdowns, a memory surfaced, the tearful gratitude in my mother's eyes the first time I offered to help with their mortgage after Dad's heart attack. I don't know what we'd do without you, Clara, she had whispered, hugging me tight. You're our rock, their dependable daughter, their personal ATM. My phone buzzed again, another message from my mother. I packed a plate for you and Leo. Your dad can drop it off later. The audacity of it almost made me laugh. They had kicked us out of Thanksgiving dinner, only to offer up leftovers like some kind of consolation prize. Leo had unbuckled himself and was now pressed against the car window, watching a squirrel dart around the park. His quiet resilience amazed me, already finding something to be curious about, despite his disappointment. The phone buzzed once more. Not my parents this time, but Aunt Margaret. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Clara, are you all right? Her voice was laced with concern. Not exactly, I admitted. Did they tell you what happened? I saw everything, she replied, her tone sharp with disapproval. It was awful, the way they treated you and Leo. I tried to speak up after you left, but Chloe started crying and everyone got distracted. What is Chloe even talking about, Aunt Margaret? I never said anything bad about her to anyone. A heavy sigh came through the line. It's all in her head, Clara. She's been telling people you're spreading rumors, turning the family against her. No one with a brain believes it, at least not anyone reasonable. But your parents, they walk on eggshells around her. Why would she make that up, I asked, my frustration giving way to exhaustion. Who knows, jealousy, avoidance. That girl needs real help, Clara. And your parents? They're not helping her by enabling this nonsense. As she spoke, a banking alert flashed across my screen. Unusual withdrawal, $5,000 from checking account. My stomach twisted. Aunt Margaret, I have to go, I cut in abruptly. Something's wrong with my bank account. I hung up and pulled up my account history. Sure enough, the $5,000 had been withdrawn this morning, straight from the emergency joint account I'd set up for my parents. The largest withdrawal they had ever made. With trembling hands, I texted my father. Why did you withdraw $5,000 today? His reply came almost instantly. Urgent. We'll explain later. Then a message from my mother. Chloe needed help with some debts. We'll pay you back soon." And just like that, the pieces slid into place with nauseating clarity. They had taken my money, a significant amount, to bail Chloe out of whatever mess she'd gotten herself into. On the very day they threw Leo and me out of Thanksgiving dinner. And worse, a horrifying realization dawned on me. Chloe probably didn't even know I was the one covering their bills all these years. They had been taking my money while letting her believe they were the ones keeping the household afloat. The betrayal wasn't just today. It had been building for years. Years of being used, of carrying their burdens, only to be met with conditional love and constant criticism. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my mother. "Are you bringing Leo to the Christmas recital next week? She has a solo, right?" The casual nature of the text, the complete disregard for what had just happened, was the final straw. They truly believed they could treat us like this, and everything would carry on as usual. "Leo," I called softly. He turned from the window. "Ready to go home and start our own Thanksgiving?" He nodded, climbing back into his seat. "Can we still have pie?" he asked, hope flickering in his voice. "We'll have the best pie," I promised him, and ice cream too. As I started the car, I felt something shift inside me, a boundary finally snapping into place, where I'd once allowed endless access. Whatever happened next, things would never be the same, and strangely, that thought didn't hurt as much as I expected it to. By the time we pulled into the driveway, it was nearly 4:30, the exact hour most families would be sitting down to Thanksgiving dinner. Our house felt unusually quiet after the tension-filled chaos at my parents' place. Leo kicked off his shoes and looked up at me expectantly. "What are we gonna eat, Mommy?" I set my purse down, took a steadying breath, and forced a smile. "Let's see what our options are, sweetheart." A quick glance through the fridge confirmed what I already suspected. Not much. I'd been counting on Thanksgiving leftovers to get us through the weekend, so I hadn't stocked up. We had eggs, some cheese, half a loaf of bread, and the usual odds and ends in the pantry. "How about breakfast for dinner?" I suggested. "Chocolate chip pancakes." Leo's face lit up. "Do we have bacon?" "Let me check," I said, rummaging through the freezer. "No bacon." "All right, new plan. Let's go on a little adventure to the store and grab ourselves a real Thanksgiving dinner. Just for the two of us. Think anywhere's still open?" "The grocery store on Main Street is open until 6 on holidays," I replied, grabbing my keys. "Come on, let's go make some memories." Leo stayed quiet during the short drive, giving me time to think. My phone buzzed steadily with messages from my parents, but I'd silenced it. I needed space, to process, to breathe, to decide what came next. The grocery store parking lot was nearly empty, save for a few other last-minute shoppers like us. Inside, the place was eerily calm. Only 2 cashiers were working, looking bored and ready to clock out. "Let's see what's left," I told Leo, grabbing a cart. We headed for the deli section first. Miraculously, there were still a few rotisserie chickens sitting under the heat lamps. "Not turkey, but close enough," I joked, grabbing the biggest one. We made our way through the store, cobbling together a makeshift holiday meal. Instant mashed potatoes, a jar of gravy, a bag of dinner rolls, canned cranberry sauce, definitely inferior to mine, but it would do, and a frozen pumpkin pie. In the produce section, we even found a lonely bag of green beans. "A real Thanksgiving has veggies," I explained, as Leo eyed them skeptically. While we debated which flavor of ice cream would go best with pumpkin pie, a woman around my age approached us. She pushed a cart almost identical to ours, last-minute holiday groceries, and a lone rotisserie chicken. "Plan B dinner?" she asked with a knowing smile. "Something like that," I replied with a chuckle. "Original plan fell apart." "Same here," she sighed. "My sister's kids all came down with the stomach flu this morning. I'm Clara, and this is my son, Leo." She smiled warmly at Leo. "How old are you, Leo?" 6, he answered proudly, holding up the appropriate number of fingers. "My nephew's 6 too," she said. He was really looking forward to seeing his cousins today. As we chatted by the freezer section, I found myself relaxing in the easy, open way Nadine spoke. When she mentioned living just a few blocks from us, it felt less like coincidence and more like fate, maybe. "Okay, this might sound strange," Nadine said as we headed toward the checkout. "But do you two want to come have dinner with me? I've got all this food, and honestly, It feels silly to eat alone when you're in the same boat. I hesitated, glancing at Leo. That's very sweet, but we wouldn't want to impose. You wouldn't be imposing, Nadine insisted. Honestly, you'd be doing me a favor. Thanksgiving alone is pretty dull. Leo tugged on my sleeve. Can we, Mommy? Please? Looking at his hopeful little face, my decision became easy. If you're sure, we'd love to. We agreed to follow Nadine home after we paid. As we loaded our groceries into the car, I realized, for the first time all day, I felt lighter. Sometimes, kindness shows up in the most unexpected places. Nadine's house was a charming little craftsman with a bright red front door. Inside, it was warm and inviting, not spotless or staged for company, but lived in and cozy, with stacks of books on side tables and bursts of colorful artwork brightening the walls. Make yourselves at home, Nadine said, as she led us into the kitchen. I'm no master chef, but I can wrangle a rotisserie chicken just fine. As we threw together our impromptu Thanksgiving dinner, I learned that Nadine was a pediatric nurse, newly settled in town after a rough divorce. She was easy to talk to, laughed at Leo's jokes, and never pried when my answers about our original Thanksgiving plans stayed vague. By the time we sat down to eat, Leo had all but forgotten his earlier disappointment. He proudly arranged the dinner rolls in a basket while Nadine carved the chicken and I stirred the instant mashed potatoes. Should we say what we're thankful for? Nadine suggested, setting the table with mismatched plates and candles that flickered softly. I'll go first, Leo chimed in eagerly. I'm thankful the chicken tastes like turkey, and for new friends, and for ice cream. Nadine and I chuckled. I'm thankful for surprise guests who turned this holiday into something special, she added with a smile. When it was my turn, I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. I'm thankful for kind strangers and new beginnings. Throughout dinner, my phone buzzed relentlessly in my pocket. I ignored it, choosing instead to soak in the genuine warmth of our makeshift celebration. After we'd eaten and Leo was curled up in Nadine's living room, mesmerized by a Christmas movie, I finally checked my phone. 23 messages and 11 missed calls, mostly from my parents, but also from Chloe, Uncle Ben, and Aunt Margaret. The latest was from my mom. Clara, please pick up. We're worried about you. I slipped out onto Nadine's back porch for privacy and called Brooke. Oh my God, Clara, she answered on the first ring. Where are you? I've been trying to reach you for hours. Sorry, I silenced my phone, I replied. It's been a day. Your mom called me, asking if I'd heard from you. She said there was a misunderstanding at Thanksgiving dinner. What happened? I gave her the short version, my voice trembling as I recounted the humiliation of being asked to leave. They're manipulative. Ungrateful, Brooke snapped, her outrage validating my own. And they took $5,000 from you today after kicking you out? Apparently, Chloe needed it, I said bitterly. Clara, this has to stop. They're using you. I know, I sighed. I think I've always known, but today? Today made it impossible to ignore. So what are you going to do? Brooke asked gently. I leaned on the porch railing, staring up at the stars peeking through the night sky. I'm not entirely sure yet, but something has to change. After hanging up, I texted my mother. Leo and I are safe. We'll be in touch tomorrow. Then I drafted an email to my parents, carefully outlining the years of financial support I'd provided and the deep hurt I felt after today's events. I didn't send it yet. It needed editing, after I wasn't so emotional, but writing it down helped clear my head. Back inside, I found Nadine tidying up as Leo dozed off on the couch. He's out cold, she whispered with a smile. Too much excitement and pie. Thank you for all of this, I said sincerely. You saved our Thanksgiving. Saved each other, Nadine replied softly. Otherwise, it would have been a lonely night for both of us. As we chatted over dishes, I found myself opening up more about what had happened with my family. Nadine listened without judgment, occasionally nodding with quiet understanding. Family dynamics can be complicated, she said finally, but sometimes distance is the healthiest choice. I'm starting to realize that, I admitted, and for the first time all day, the weight in my chest felt just a little bit lighter. By the time I carried a sleeping Leo out to the car, Nadine and I had already exchanged numbers and loosely planned a future playdate with her nephew. Driving home, I felt an odd mix of emotions, a lingering sting from my family's betrayal, but also, strangely, a quiet sense of freedom. For years, I'd been carrying the weight of my parents' financial needs and Chloe's endless drama. What would life look like without that burden? When we got home, I tucked Leo into bed and settled at the kitchen table with my laptop. First, I transferred the remaining funds from the joint account I shared with my parents into my personal account. Then, I drafted an email to my financial advisor requesting an urgent meeting. Finally, I composed a calm, measured message to my parents. Mom, Dad, today was deeply hurtful and disrespectful to both Leo and me. I need time to process what happened and what it means for our relationship moving forward. Please do not contact me for a few days. I'll reach out when I'm ready to talk. Regarding the $5,000 withdrawal, I expect a full explanation of how that money was used. In the meantime, I've closed our joint account and will be reevaluating our financial arrangement. Clara. I read it twice, then hit send, before I could second-guess myself. The next morning, I called my office and requested 2 personal days. I needed space to breathe, to plan, to get my life in order. While Leo played with his Legos, I sat at the kitchen table and made a detailed list of every form of financial support I had provided my parents. Dates, amounts, all of it. The final total was staggering. Over $150,000 when you factored in medical bills, home repairs, and monthly expenses. For comparison, I created a second column, the things I'd received in return. Occasional babysitting, a birthday card here and there, constant criticism about how I was raising my son. Seeing it all laid out so plainly made my next steps crystal clear. By the time my financial advisor called me back, I was ready to talk strategy. We can structure a gradual step down, he suggested. Reduce payments incrementally over 6 months to give them time to adjust. That sounds fair, I agreed, but I want everything in writing. 3 days after Thanksgiving, I received a long voicemail from Aunt Margaret. Her voice simmered with quiet anger as she explained how she'd learned, through Uncle Ben, that my parents had been taking credit for financially supporting Chloe, using my money to do it. They told everyone at Thanksgiving, after you left, that they paid for her last round of rehab, Aunt Margaret recounted. But Clara, I know full well that was your money. This has to stop. With that final confirmation, I knew I was ready to face them. I arranged for Leo to have a play date with Nadine's nephew and drove to my parents' house, my paperwork tucked neatly in a folder beside me. It was time to set boundaries, not just for myself, but for Leo. He deserved better than to grow up watching his mother be manipulated and discarded by the very people who were supposed to love her most. As I pulled into their driveway, a strange sense of calm settled over me. No matter what happened next, I knew I was finally doing the right thing. My days of being the family ATM, showered with nothing but judgment and conditional love, were officially over. I sat in the car outside my parents' house for a few minutes, summoning every ounce of courage I had left. The folder on the passenger seat wasn't just filled with paperwork. It held years of one-sided giving, years of sacrifice swept under the rug. A part of me wanted to simply mail it to them, block their numbers, and be done with it. But I knew that wouldn't bring the closure I desperately needed. So after a deep breath, I grabbed the folder and walked up to the front door. Before I could even knock, the door opened, revealing my mother. She looked both relieved and anxious, her eyes darting over me. Clara, thank God, we've been so worried. Can I come in? I asked evenly, keeping my emotions firmly in check. Of course, she stammered, stepping back. Your father's in the living room. We thought maybe you'd come today. The house looked exactly as it had on Thanksgiving Day, though the festive decorations now felt like a cruel joke. My father rose from his chair as I entered, his expression unreadable. Clara, he greeted with a stiff nod. Good to see you. Is Chloe here? I asked, still standing as they sat. No, she's out, my mother replied quickly. Clara, about Thanksgiving. Before we discuss that, I interrupted, my voice steady. I'd like to talk about this. I opened the folder and laid a spreadsheet on the coffee table between us. This is a record of every financial contribution I've made to this family over the last 5 years. They exchanged a worried glance, but didn't reach for the papers. We know you've been generous, my father began, and we appreciate $153,742, I stated plainly. That's the total, including the $5,000 you withdrew without consulting me. My mother's hand trembled as it hovered near her throat. That can't be right. It is, I replied, pulling out the supporting documents. Here are the mortgage payments. Here are the utility bills, medical expenses, car payments, home repairs, direct transfers. 5 years of propping up this household. My father cleared his throat. Clara, families help each other. When you've needed childcare, I've calculated that too, I cut in, producing another sheet. Based on standard rates, the occasional babysitting you've provided comes to roughly $2,800. That leaves $150,942. We're not keeping score, my mother protested weakly. Clearly not, I shot back. If we were, maybe you would have thought twice before humiliating me and your grandson on Thanksgiving. At least they had the decency to look ashamed. Chloe? She was in a fragile state, my father offered. The doctor said another episode could... What exactly is wrong with Chloe? I asked bluntly. You keep mentioning episodes, but never explain. Again, the nervous glance between them. My mother sighed. She was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. The doctors say it explains the mood swings, the substance abuse, the inability to maintain relationships. It was the first I'd heard of any official diagnosis. When did this happen? About a year ago, my father admitted. After what happened last Christmas. I remembered that night, Chloe arriving 3 hours late, visibly drunk, picking a fight with Mom, storming out. I hadn't known there was a diagnosis that followed. Why didn't you tell me? I demanded. Chloe didn't want anyone to know, my mother explained. She was embarrassed. So instead, you let me believe she was just being Chloe? You let me think she was choosing to be difficult, rather than struggling with a mental health condition. We were respecting her privacy, my father insisted. I shook my head in disbelief. Do you even realize how that shaped the way I see her, the way I see you? For years, I watched you cover for what I thought was just bad behavior. We're trying to help her, my mother defended. By taking my money without telling me what it's really for, by letting her believe you're the ones financially supporting her, by standing by while she treats me like the enemy. Before either of them could respond, the front door opened. Chloe walked in, freezing as she spotted me, her eyes immediately narrowed. What the hell is she doing here? She snapped, her hostility unchanged since Thanksgiving. Chloe, please, my mother sighed, visibly worn down. We're trying to work things out. Chloe entered the living room, her gaze landing on the papers spread across the coffee table. What's all this? Financial records, I said evenly. 5 years of supporting this family. For a split second, her eyes widened with surprise, before her expression hardened. So that's what this is about, huh? Classic Clara. Always needs to prove she's better than the rest of us. That's not why I'm here, I replied, keeping my voice calm. I'm here because I deserve respect. And so does my son. What happened on Thanksgiving? That was unacceptable. Oh, boo-hoo, Chloe sneered. Poor perfect Clara didn't get her perfect holiday. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, for the first time in years. Beneath the anger, I could see it. The pain, the fear, the desperate need to be seen. Knowing her diagnosis gave me context for her behavior, but it didn't excuse it. Chloe, I said softly, I know about your diagnosis. Her face paled, eyes flicking toward our parents with accusation. You told her, she snapped. After you promised. They didn't have to, I cut in. You've been telling me for years. Through your behavior, I just didn't have the context to understand it. Don't psychoanalyze me, she hissed. You don't know what I've been through. You're right, I admitted gently. I don't. Because no one in this family ever communicates honestly. I turned to our parents. I didn't come here to fight. And I'm not here to demand payback. I'm here to inform you that our financial arrangement is changing. My father leaned forward, instantly on alert. What does that mean? It means, I said firmly, I will no longer be supporting this family the way I have been. I've consulted with my financial advisor, and we've created a 6-month transition plan. During that time, my contributions will decrease until they stop altogether. You can't do that, my mother exclaimed, panic creeping into her voice. Your father's health. My advisor will help you explore other options, I continued calmly. Reverse mortgage, downsizing, restructuring retirement funds. You have choices that don't involve leaning on me. So this is because of one bad day, my father asked skeptically. One misunderstanding, and now you're cutting us off. This isn't about Thanksgiving, I clarified. Thanksgiving was simply the moment I finally saw this relationship for what it is. This is about years of being disregarded, about you accepting my money while letting Chloe believe it came from you, about putting her needs above mine and Leo's at every turn. Chloe let out a bitter laugh. So it's all about the money. You're proving my point. I turned to face her directly. Chloe, do you know who paid for your last round of rehab? She rolled her eyes. Mom and Dad, obviously. No, I said softly. It was me. Just like it was me for the 3 rounds before that. Just like it was me paying for the therapy you quit after 2 sessions. Just like it was me covering this mortgage. The house you're living in, rent-free. For a moment, Chloe looked stunned, her eyes darting to our parents for confirmation. Their silence spoke volumes. They let you believe, I continued, that they were financially supporting you, just like they let me believe you were simply difficult instead of struggling with BPD. For a fleeting second, raw pain flashed across Chloe's face before her defenses snapped back into place. What do you want from me now? A thank you? To worship you for being so generous? No, I replied simply. I want honesty, and I want respect, for myself and for my son. I stood gathering my documents. The transition plan starts next month. My advisor will be in touch to walk you through your options. Clara, please, my mother pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. We can't survive without your help. You can, I assured her gently. You're intelligent, capable adults with resources and choices. You've grown dependent on my support, but that doesn't mean you truly need it. My father's expression darkened, his skepticism turning to anger. So that's it? After everything we've done for you, you're walking away? The irony of his words almost made me laugh. I'm not walking away from this family. I'm setting boundaries. Boundaries that should have existed a long time ago. I turned to leave, but Chloe stepped in front of me, blocking the doorway. You think you're so perfect, don't you? With your fancy career, your perfect little kid, your big house. Some of us have real problems, Clara. I met her gaze, steady and unflinching. I know you're hurting, Chloe, and I truly am sorry for that. But your pain doesn't give you permission to inflict pain on others, especially not on a 6-year-old who adores his grandparents and was heartbroken when they turned him away. For a brief moment, something resembling shame flickered across Chloe's face. I hope you get the help you need, I continued. And I hope, one day, we can have a relationship built on mutual respect. But until then, I have to protect myself. And my son. As I moved toward the door, my mother followed, tears streaming down her cheeks. But what about Christmas? What about Leo's recital? I paused in the doorway. Leo and I will celebrate Christmas, in our own way this year. And as for the recital, you're welcome to attend, as long as you show up as grandparents who respect his mother. With that, I walked out the door, this time with no intention of looking back. 3 days later, I received a long email from Chloe. Buried between the excuses and accusations was a small but undeniable spark of self-awareness, an admission that her behavior at Thanksgiving had crossed a line, and that she was making an effort to do better with the help of a new therapist. A week after that, my parents left me a voicemail inviting Leo and me to dinner, just the 4 of us. I politely declined, but suggested we meet at a neutral location, a local restaurant, the following week. That dinner was awkward and tense, filled with my father's complaints about cutting expenses and my mother's overly probing questions about my life. But they made an effort with Leo, and for me, that mattered most. As December rolled on, I held firm to my boundaries, steady but not cruel. I attended Leo's school recital, offering polite smiles and brief greetings to my parents when they showed up. I declined their invitation for Christmas Day, but allowed them a short visit on Christmas Eve to drop off gifts for Leo. Step by step, day by day, I was building something new with my family. A relationship shaped more by mutual respect than financial dependence. It wasn't easy, and there were still plenty of hard conversations ahead. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. The most surprising shift came from Chloe, who sent Leo a handmade card apologizing for being grumpy on Turkey Day and promising to be a better aunt. It was a small gesture, but it gave me hope that, with time and proper treatment, even that fractured relationship might heal. 1 month after the Thanksgiving disaster, Leo and I had settled into a new routine. Our mornings felt lighter somehow, as though the weight of my family's constant expectations had been physically lifted off my shoulders. We made pancakes on Sundays, visited the library on Wednesdays, and started a new Saturday adventure tradition where we explored different parts of the city. "Mommy, can we go to the Festival of Lights this weekend?" Leo asked one morning while I packed his lunch. "Absolutely," I smiled. "And maybe we can invite Nadine and her nephew, Noah." Leo's face lit up. "Yes, Noah said he's never been." My friendship with Nadine had only deepened over the past month. What started as a chance encounter had grown into something steady and genuine. Her no-nonsense kindness was a breath of fresh air after years of navigating my family's tangled dynamics. "Clara," she'd told me over coffee recently, "you've got to stop apologizing for taking up space in other people's lives. Real relationships aren't transactional." Her words stuck with me, making me realize how much of my identity had been shaped by being the responsible one, the fixer, the financial lifeline. Without those roles, who was I? A week after Thanksgiving, I'd finally started therapy, something I'd considered for years, but never prioritized. Dr. Evans was helping me untangle the complicated emotions wrapped around my family. "You didn't cause your sister's mental health struggles," she reminded me gently in a recent session. "And you can't fix them. The same goes for your parents' financial dependency." Accepting those truths was an ongoing process. Some days, it felt easier than others. My parents initially responded to the financial transition plan with a predictable mix of disbelief and desperation. That first reduction in support triggered a flurry of guilty voicemails and texts. But I stayed firm, directing them to the financial advisor who was, in fact, trying to help them restructure their finances. "We might have to sell the house," my father admitted, begrudgingly, during our most recent conversation. "Downsizing might be a practical solution," I replied neutrally, resisting the old familiar urge to swoop in with solutions or exceptions. Watching them struggle wasn't easy, but I reminded myself that these were natural consequences of their own choices, not punishments I was inflicting. Leo, resilient as ever, had adapted remarkably well to the shifting family dynamic. He still asked about his grandparents occasionally, but seemed content with our limited, structured visits. The last time we had lunch with them, he happily chatted about school and his new friend Noah, seemingly unfazed by the quiet tension simmering beneath the surface. Chloe had been noticeably absent from those gatherings. According to my mother, she was finally focusing on her recovery, attending therapy twice a week and participating in a structured outpatient program. I'd received a handful of texts from her, some filled with genuine apologies, others dripping with passive-aggressive snark. I responded to the first group with gentle encouragement. The second, I simply ignored. As Christmas approached, my parents' invitations grew more persistent. "It's tradition," my mother pleaded over the phone. "Leo should be with family on Christmas." "We're starting our own traditions this year," I explained, maybe for the 100th time. "But you're welcome to join us for Christmas Eve dinner if you'd like." To my surprise, they accepted. Even more surprising, they showed up on time, with appropriate gifts for Leo, and for once, no passive-aggressive jabs hidden behind their smiles. The evening wasn't perfect. Dad still slipped in a few pointed remarks about their tightening budget. But all in all, it was manageable. As they left, my mother gave me a tentative hug. "Thank you for letting us be part of it," she said, her voice carrying genuine gratitude. That night, after Leo drifted off to sleep, still buzzing with excitement from Christmas Eve, I sat beside our little tree, reflecting on the past month. The sting of Thanksgiving hadn't completely faded, but it had transformed into something else, a catalyst for the change I so desperately needed. Christmas Day, we hosted what I lovingly called our chosen family dinner. Nadine and her nephew Noah came, along with 2 couples from my work and their kids, and of course, Brooke and her husband. Our home buzzed with laughter, honest conversation, and the kind of warmth only found among people who choose to show up for you, with no strings attached. "This is the best Christmas ever," Leo declared, laughing as he played with the other kids. looking around at the people who had gathered, not out of obligation, but out of care, I couldn't help but agree. In therapy, Dr. Evans had asked me to reflect on what I'd learned from the whole Thanksgiving experience. At first, my answer was bitter. Don't trust family. Everyone's selfish. But as the weeks passed, quieter, more complicated truths emerged. I learned that boundaries aren't selfish. They're essential to healthy relationships. I discovered that my worth isn't tied to what I can give financially or emotionally to others. I realized that family can be defined by love and respect, not just bloodlines. And most importantly, I learned that breaking toxic cycles is painful, but the peace that follows is worth every uncomfortable step. In January, I received an unexpected email from Chloe. She was moving to Colorado to enter a specialized treatment program for BPD. I need a fresh start, she wrote. Away from the patterns here, maybe one day we can have a real relationship as sisters. But first, I need to work on myself. It was perhaps the most honest communication we'd ever shared. I wished her well and meant it. My parents, slowly but surely, were adjusting to their new financial reality. The house was listed for sale, and they'd begun exploring condos in a nearby retirement community, a practical decision they probably should have made years ago. Our relationship remained fragile, but it was shifting towards something more balanced. One evening, while Leo and I were cooking dinner together, he asked a question that caught me off guard. Mom, are we still a family, even if it's just you and me? I set down the spoon I was holding and knelt to meet his eyes. Absolutely, sweetheart. Families come in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes it's a mom, a dad, and kids. Sometimes it's two moms or two dads. Sometimes it's grandparents raising grandkids. And sometimes, like us, it's a mom and her wonderful little boy. Leo thought about that for a moment, then nodded firmly. We're still a family, just us two. That's right, I smiled, pulling him into a hug. And we have our chosen family too. People like Nadine and Noah and Brooke. People who love us for exactly who we are. His simple, childlike wisdom reminded me of what truly matters. The pain of Thanksgiving, as raw as it had been, had pushed us towards something better, toward a life built on real love, not conditional acceptance. As I tucked Leo into bed that night, I realized the greatest gift this whole painful chapter had given me was the lesson I'd now pass down to him. That he is worthy of respect, that boundaries are healthy, and that family, whether by blood or by choice, should uplift you, not tear you down. The healing wasn't over. There would be more hard conversations, more boundaries to reinforce, more personal growth to chase. But for the first time in years, I was moving into the future with quiet hope, not obligation. Sometimes the greatest gratitude doesn't come from what we give to others, but from what we finally allow ourselves to receive. Respect, authentic connection, and the peace that comes from breaking free of toxic patterns. And if one day my parents and Chloe truly understand that, maybe we can build something new together, not rooted in guilt or financial dependence, but in mutual respect and genuine care. Until then, Leo and I will keep creating our own traditions, defining family on our terms. Have you ever had to set tough boundaries with your family? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs the reminder that it is not only okay, but necessary to protect your peace. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for those you care about is to set healthy, unapologetic boundaries.